Getting people to actually attend a nightclub event is actually substantially harder than it seems. And so there's three main things you need to do in my experience to actually build a promotions team around you so that they bring their friends bring their friends, those effects compound over time and your nightclub event will see long-term success. Because I've run plenty of different promotions events and some of them had like literally more bartenders than there were heads through the door, and some of them saw really long-term success and basically turned into a cult like you would have heard from some of my previous videos. So what I'm going to share with you in this video is the three main things that you need to do to build that team around you and have their support. Hey guys, my name is Brandon. I used to DJ and produce as Welco. I don't DJ or do nightclub promotions anymore, but what I do share on this channel is some of the key lessons I learned from my time when I was a DJ and a club promoter, because some of those lessons were either like financially, physically, or emotionally expensive, and so I'd rather them just not go to waste, and so I just share them with you on this YouTube channel. So if you work in nightlife, or you're a DJ, or a producer, or a club promoter, consider subscribing so that you don't need to repeat any of the dumb mistakes I made in my early 20s. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. These are the three things you need to do and build your team around to have long-term success with your club promotions. So if we have our team in the middle here, there's three pillars we need. Now some of you are already going to be thinking this is pretty fucking Illuminati. And not gonna lie, you basically want your team to be like a cult. So this is actually a fairly good diagram to use. So the first thing that we need is a vision. This is essentially a towards motivator. So what is this? This is where people need to get excited about, like, what are we creating? We're building like an event that's gonna be like the best event. We're gonna have like all the most fun people. We're not gonna have any dickheads. We're gonna have the best DJs. We're gonna have the best producers. We're gonna book all the best touring acts and stuff like that. Like whatever that vision is, that vision's gonna be really different. But here's the important thing. It has to be so ambitious that you almost feel embarrassed telling people. Because no one gets excited about like mediocre ideas. Like imagine if someone came to you and was like, hey man, I'm gonna do this club event. It's not gonna be that big. It's just gonna be like a small little side hustle for me and we'll make some extra money. I just think it'll be fun. Like who the fuck would get excited about that? But if you like come in and you sound like almost absurd to anyone that isn't excited by the idea, and you're coming like, we're gonna build the best fucking emo night ever. Everyone's gonna come. Literally, we're gonna obliterate all of our competitors. It's not even gonna be a fair fight. Anyone that wants to go to that event, they're like, fuck, this guy has so much conviction, I just want to be on the team. So that's your towards motivate, like what are we building? Cool, the next thing you need is actually an enemy. And this is an away from motivator. Now, this could be any number of things. I've done this a bunch of different ways. So for example, one enemy I had was just like a rival nightclub. There was just like two nightclubs in this specific area, and you either went to one or the other, but you probably didn't go to both. And if you went to one, you didn't like the other. And if you went to that other one, you didn't like ours. But it doesn't need to be like another event or another like venue. Like I was just 21 and I had an ego and I didn't like other people. But it could also just be like a made up boogeyman. So for example, like if you have like an emo night, the boogeyman could be the people that picked on you in high school, right? And then it's like you have something that you're moving towards, and then you have also something that you just don't like, right? Because what these 2 points here make is motivation. Because motivation is a combination of things you want to move towards, like goals, and things you want to move away from, like pain. So for example, if I were to use like a fitness example, a towards motivator will be like get jacked and shredded, and away from motivator will be an early death because you have like, I don't know, cardiac problems and stuff like that because you're overweight. So that creates motivation. The next thing you need is a leader. And this, if you're watching this, it's probably you. Every single major movement in history, whether it's religion, politics, good or bad as well, has always had a charismatic leader to pull people in. You need to be able to communicate your vision and the enemy. Because when the leader points out the enemy, that creates tribalism, which is like a us versus them. Now, a horrible example of this would be like Adolf Hitler and the enemies that he labeled and communicated. A less horrible example, and perhaps a slightly better one, is like musicians that say like, hey, like I like this music and I don't like their music over there. It's obviously a commercial intent behind that, but there's also a commercial intent behind our event. Now, when that leader communicates their vision, that creates a following. So think of like Steve Jobs thinking like, hey, we're like charging, you know, leading the front for Apple. There's religious examples and political examples of like charismatic leaders that communicated their ideal vision for the future. And so as a leader, you communicate who's the enemy to create tribalism. And as the leader, you communicate what's my vision so that we can create a following. And that is how you build a solid team around you. Whether it's nightclub events, politics, religion, all the major movements in history have had these three things. So if you can tap into this and tap into human nature, you'll build a following around your event that doesn't just extend to your team, but your team will communicate it to their friends, which the effects of that will compound, and you'll have more and more people attending your events, and you'll spend less and less on ads because you have the strength of just people telling their friends, which builds, by extension of all of this, you could essentially erase team, and instead you can just write community, because that is all that events are. A bunch of people going to the same place, listening to the same music, doing the same things so that they feel like they fit in. If there's no community around their event, they come once, they say, I didn't really vibe this, and then they go somewhere else. But if people go somewhere and they fit in, they keep coming back. So go ahead, tap into all of this as you build your nightclub promotions team. Use your powers for good, and I'll see you in the next video.